Thanks for joining us on the night team. I'm Shay McAllister. 2 GE employees were sent to the hospital after being electrocuted while working at Appliance Park today. GE officials tell us the workers are being treated by their on-site medical team. They were then taken to the hospital for further evaluation. Assistant Chief Dwayne Hutchins with Fern Creek Fire, who responded to the scene, says the workers suffered minor to moderate injuries. The cause of the incident is still under investigation. And we do have new developments in the high-profile Indiana murder case that has gripped the nation. The man charged with killing 2 teens in the Delphi murder case went before a judge today. Bob Siegel with our sister station in Indianapolis was inside that courtroom where attorneys discussed the so-called incriminating statements that suspect made in prison.
January 8th, 2024. That is when jury selection will begin for the trial of Richard Allen, and we're told that that trial will last about 3 weeks. Now, the really surprising news that we got out of court today, the Carroll County prosecutor said Richard Allen has made incriminating statements in prison. The prosecutor, Nick McClellan, said that Allen, and I quote, confessed 5 or 6 times to killing the girls. Now, he did not go into more detail than that, but Allen's defense attorney said that the statements that were made were generic, and he said the jury's going to hear more about that when the time is right. We were expecting to have a hearing on ballistics evidence today that potentially could link Richard Allen, the state says, to a bullet that was found at the crime scene. They say that bullet testing shows that it matches up to a gun that was found in Allen's home. We didn't have that hearing today. Judge Fran Gall said that's going to take place later. Now, Richard Allen looked very frail and unsteady as he walked in and out of court today. His health was a big part of today's court hearing. His defense wants the judge to move Allen out of the maximum security prison where he's currently being held and move him to the Cass County Jail, which is just about 20 minutes away from Delphi. The judge took arguments from both sides on that into consideration. She did not rule anything on a motion on that today. That we expect to come in the next couple of weeks.
Well, if you're interested in learning some more about this case and the history behind it, we have a full timeline posted on our website. Head on over to WHAS11.com. And for the first time in 5 years, Kentucky saw a decrease in overdose deaths. That's according to a new report from the state of Kentucky. In 2022, more than 2,100 Kentuckians lost their lives from a drug overdose. That is down 5% from 2021, which you can see saw the highest number of deaths in the last 3 years. The report says 90% of those overdose deaths involved opioids. Fentanyl was the top drug causing death. In fact, fentanyl was responsible for nearly 73% of deaths nationwide. The report also indicated potent, inexpensive methamphetamine was a significant factor. Governor Andy Beshear said looking at the numbers puts a lot into perspective.
Those are tough numbers. That means we've lost over 2,000 of our fellow Kentuckians. But there is hope, even in a number that tough. Because last year, Kentucky was one of only 8 states in the entire country that saw a significant decrease in overdose deaths.
Team's Connor Steffen and photojournalist Ian Hartwitt spoke with those working to put an end to the epidemic.
According to this latest overdose fatality report in 2022, Kentucky was one of 8 states to see a notable decrease in overdose deaths.
And there's always more we can do, but to have a 5% move is really, that's encouraging.
Marla Hybaugh with Louisville recovery program The Healing Place says the push behind this trend is twofold.
One is anytime you can have conversations, reduce the stigma, you're opening up a whole conversation and the ability to reach someone who needs help.
That includes the increase in accessibility to harm reduction tools like Narcan and fentanyl test strips.
I think the second reason is probably related to post-COVID availability of resources.
While figures have dropped, overdose deaths sit at a number double what it was a decade ago, seeing its peak coincide with the height of the pandemic.
You know, just thinking back to the call and when we got it, and It's just like it's just reliving it, I guess, all over again.
Tammy Boblet lost her son Chase to fentanyl poisoning during that peak period in June 2021.
That's his thumbprint.
She finds little solace in this year's report.
The problem is so bad. We are still losing people in our community all the time. People are dying every day.
The numbers proof, Boblet says, of the long road ahead.
And this makes me sad because sometimes I'm like, so how long will we keep fighting? And most parents are like, I don't think it's going to go away.
And the substances will come and go. And what is the highest point right now? What is the most popular that's being cut with fentanyl or has an access point for that could change next year.
But with change, some things remain the same.
For those that don't have someone struggling, they need to feel pretty blessed.
A sentiment both women share.
People still believe, who cares? The only ones dying are drug addicts.
It's also not specific to an economic status. It's not specific to an area of town. Addiction is a struggle for individuals across the board. It does not care about any of those things.
A daily effort toward ending a long-standing stigma. In Louisville, Connor Steffen, the WHAS 11 night team, on your side.
More money to help fight the opioid crisis is coming to Kentucky as part of a national opioid settlement. The Commonwealth will be getting $317 million. It's the result of a lawsuit against pharmaceutical companies Teva and Allergan, along with CVS and Walgreens, for their roles in the opioid epidemic. All of the companies involved will also be required to change their opioid policies, including how they're marketed and how suspicious activity around opioid prescriptions is reported. Kentucky will receive the money over 15 years, starting at the end of this year.
I just believe that we should have at least a basic knowledge and basic education on firearms before we have them in our home.
3 members of a family of a toddler that got a hold of a gun and shot themselves appeared in court today. The child's parents and uncle pleading not guilty to multiple charges. Today, the judge set the bond at $100,000. If they do post that bond, all 3 were ordered to have no contact with the child and no access to firearms. The devastating accidental shooting is once again highlighting the importance of keeping household guns secure. David Goad, CEO of Gollum Security here in Louisville, says education is the best prevention for tragic accidents like this, and something as simple as a gun lock can save a life. He was actually part of a community event last year handing out gun locks to people at 28th Street. The event came right on the heels of an accidental shooting involving a 2-year-old. He says a simple, easy-to-use gun lock would solve these problems, and it's very sad to see the same scenarios playing out.
Children are very inquisitive. And if they see something that you carry a lot, then that means to them, it's important to you. So they're going to want to know what it is. And if you don't have it properly secured, you can have a very tragic influence.
He says, though he's not a nonprofit, he does give out free gun locks to gun owners who come in and ask about them because he doesn't want safety cost to ever be a barrier to safety. A 25-year-old Louisville man is dead after a crash on West Highway US 42 in Oldham County last night. According to the Oldham County Police Department, Patrick McKinney's car drove off the road, flipped and hit a utility pole. Witnesses say the crash happened after the speeding car crossed the middle line of the road and lost control. McKinney died at the scene. And the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission is hiring a new position to oversee safety at racetracks. This comes in response to the spike in deaths at Churchill Downs. The safety steward will monitor the barn area and the racetrack. They'll keep close records of horse entries, performances, vet treatments, and more. They will also help with pre-meet track inspections. Today, we talked with Churchill Downs Equine Medical Director about the change.
Just overall safety of the horses. If they identify an issue that needs to be addressed, they can either come to us as a racetrack that we can address right away, or if it's a safety issue with an exercise rider, that they can work with that individual or trainer directly.
This new position will be the lead position for safety compliance among all racetracks. And new tonight, we are also learning more details about the 12 horse deaths that initiated some of these changes. The Kentucky Horse Racing Commission released its 5th mortality report, this one on Bosque Redondo, who died on May 15th. The report shows the 4-year-old colt was euthanized 2 days after he suffered a fractured leg during a race at Churchill Downs. Veterinarians described the injury as highly unusual. According to the report, no prohibited drugs were found in the colt's system, and he passed pre-race exams.